Hi everyone, welcome to Off the Podium. I have Johnny is from Los Angeles area, Long Beach maybe. Johnny, how's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you, man?
It's been a long time since I've seen you. We were just talking about that before we got on, but it's a couple of years now. It's 5 or so years at least since
At
I've
least,
seen you.
yes, that's right. That's right.
And it's so great to see that you're doing so many wonderful things in music, and especially I'll start right away with the recently published series of books that you had, and that was really nice to see. And why don't you share with us what that's about and how you came to kind of initiating that project?
First of all, thank you, especially for reaching out, man. It's good to see you, catch up after all this time. Yeah. So I've been working right when I graduated college. I've just been working as a freelance musician and percussionist, drummer, and so as most musicians know, you got to pick up a little bit of teaching on the side too, teaching private lessons and things like that, because it's actually helps your musicianship and it helps your patience. It helps your focus when you're trying to focus on these ideas. And right away, I just kind of figured that I would collaborate and harness certain educational topics, and I was trying to find all these different from all the books that I learned out of, and I started putting together various parts of different books together, and I was teaching out of those and formulating a way of teaching these topics, and I found that it was just easier for me to just write my own material and just have it all be in different topics, whether it be lesson plans, etudes, exercises, music theory, practicing things like composition and hands-on stuff like workbooks and things like that. So so far it's been very rewarding, especially with technology today, how you're able to convert things like Sibelius files into MIDI files and then create them as audio tracks. I've actually recently, I have 8 books that I've written, and I've turned 4 of them into audio files, and it sounds like most people, when they hear it, they go, "You did a really good job playing that." It's fake. With the amazing technology from like Native Instruments plugins that you can use in Logic and quantizing and mixing and all sorts of things. So that's been a very exciting thing to see come to fruition for sure.
Yeah. How long did it take to come up with one book, say?
I think I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I think, it's been a topic that I've been addressing since I graduated and been trying to make a living as a performer and a teacher. So, I mean, around 6 years. Yeah. And like I said, I'm still working on it, converting and recording these Sibelius files into MIDI files and things like that too, and still just trying to put it all together.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is what inspires me with this project is that a lot of musicians do the teaching on the side because they kind of have to make some money. Well, you have to do that because you want to make money, but you also want to take on a project and make it useful for teachers and students. So it's really great to see that. Well, what inspired you to do this? There's someone that inspired you. I know you kind of did it because you were already kind of putting in pieces together from other books, but what was the inspiration to come up with the idea of writing a book?
I think, as musicians, I hear a lot of professional musicians talk about, they shy away from the teaching. And I don't know, I'd like to say that, teaching private lessons and group classes and things is kind of part of what being a musician is all about. Yeah. I think, you got to connect to your community and out, and kind of talk about things, because no matter what, you inspire people through, creativity and what they see in themselves or could see in themselves. And so, it's just, I've just been kind of listening to the path that my life has shown me, and just kind of taking advantage and worked really hard at every opportunity I've had. Yeah. So it's like, if I have an opportunity to write something or do something, I just do it. Yeah. Yeah. It's very hard. It's a lot of, time. It's a huge time commitment, but
Yeah.
that's what a musician is. I mean, it's not about making excuses. It's about working hard and putting out a product that, you know, is really inspirational. So I mean, it's huge for me too, because I look back on it and I go, wow, you know, I can't believe I did something like that. But it's humbling. And it's exciting too.
And it's 8 of them, so that's a big number already, for a young guy especially.
When I started, it just, I had all of these ideas, and I just started writing like crazy. I just bounced around all these different topics, like theory and drum set and hand percussion and snare drum and rudiments and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of just started consolidating my ideas, and I came up with this folder right off the bat that was like 300 pages of material.
Wow.
And I approached one of my old professors from Cal State Long Beach at the NAMM show to get his opinion, just catch up with him, Dr. Gerhardt. And Dave Gerhardt. And he said to me right off the bat, he goes, "That's a lot of stuff. I would make it multiple books." So that's kind of he and a few other people. Like I asked a lot of fellow musicians, you know, to take a look at it and read through it and tell me what they thought, and it just kind of ended up being these ideas that were focused into different topics, and that's kind of how the books came about.
Yeah. Well, you know, for every instrument, whether it's flute or tuba or anything, violin, there's a million books out there.
Yeah.
How's your book different, and what kind of a new perspective do you bring to this methodology, or whatever you want to call it?
Absolutely. And I think every book that's out there, you know, is worth taking a look at and applying it. I think, you know, you watch all these videos on YouTube, and they're like, oh, this is the YouTube instructional video to end all instructional videos. And it's like, you know, I don't believe in strict competition when it comes to music. I believe in being, you know, competitive with yourself. Yeah. And not letting, you know, other people's success, you know, and you see this a lot, you know, when people are successful, you know, you need to be happy for their success and not let it hinder your own potential or what you can accomplish. So, to answer your question about why I think this is different is because I have, with the curriculum, rather than just going in like one specific book, I think it's really hard to address all of these important topics in one book, you know, especially as a percussionist, you know, we get very distracted, you know, with all the different things that we need to tackle. You know, we have to learn music theory, we have to learn rhythm, we have to learn different instruments. You know, it's part of the blessing and the curse of being a musician or a percussionist, is that we play so many instruments. We have to play all these things, but then we have to play all these things. Focusing on the techniques and things like that. So I think to start with, like to answer your question, is the fact that there's not so much convolution. The topics are focused. Yeah. And you know, for my book, The Science of Time and Rhythm, is like subdividing and learning how to subdivide and count, and it's like you can't read through it in one sitting. I mean, it's a book that takes like a long time, and you're gonna have to go back to it and refer to it from time to time. But it's there as you're learning all these other things. Yeah. And then apart from that, it's all converted into audio files. Yeah. So I think as a percussionist and a musician, we have to really be patient. And so for example, my drum set fundamentals book is converted into 8 different tempos, ranging from 45 beats per minute in increments of 15 beats per minute all the way to 150. So as a drum set player, you see a lot of young drummers, they're not grooving at 45 beats per minute, you know? So if it's there, it's going to open up their eyes going, I need to address playing very slow. And as it changes with different styles, it's always important, you know? So I think that that's a really big thing about it too, is there's a lot of things to listen to and practice to with it.
You know, I remember talking to someone a couple of years ago, and they were like, well, percussionists, is there a major for triangle? And I was like, no, as a percussionist, you play all these instruments, all the instruments in the orchestra or wind ensemble or whatever ensemble you're playing, or even if you're playing in just a jazz band or something, you know all these different instruments that you have to master, and that's one of the toughest things as a percussionist, isn't it? How do you manage to kind of wrap your head around playing some mallets, playing the timpani, playing all these different things that are quite different from each other, but as a non-percussionist or as people who are just outside hookers, they're like, well, they're just hitting something, it's all the same.
Well, yeah, that's just dealing with how to explain what you do to people in general. Mm-hmm. I threw that out the window a long time ago, because they go like, oh, so what is percussion? Is that just like drums, or what is that? Like you said, like triangle or bongo or what? So I think it's kind of I think other percussionists would agree with me when I say that it's a very unique thing. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways. We just kind of do what we do, and we don't spend a lot of time explaining it to people. We just do it, and to get back to your question about how do you focus that, is you have to just focus. If you're playing timpani, if you're learning, how to play timpani and working on the techniques, you have to be very organized, and you have to just spend time focusing on that. You can't be thinking about, I got a drum set gig, next weekend, or I gotta learn this marimba solo, or this vibraphone solo, or this steel pan piece, or this xylophone concerto, whatever it be. You don't, and that's the other thing too, is it's not all of it at the same time. You just take the techniques that are relatable from percussion, whether it's with sticks, with mallets, with hand drumming. Music is a universal language, and I think percussion technique can be what you learn from one thing, you can apply to another thing. It's not like picking up a flute and then picking up a banjo and then picking up a mallet instrument. I mean, it has to be like, with brass, you have like a brass section, and everyone's got techniques and embouchure and things that they can work on, and intonation, and same thing with strings. I mean, it's not all the same, but it's very relatable. So that's, you can just take the techniques that like I think hand percussion is tied in very closely to stick control and things like that. There's parallels. And it's all about having a good sense of time and being able to read and to subdivide and to have something that I enforce a lot is 4-bar phrasing in my material. I think one of the things that from the books that I was learning out of, they were just like 4 bars, but they were all like the same 4 bars. I see. Right? So I started to instill 4-bar phrasing by taking like for example, like the first 3 bars are the same, and then the 4th bar is just a little bit different, so it creates that musical sentence that we know so well as the 4-bar phrase. So
well, I was gonna ask about the age, the books. Who are they for? What age group? What age level? And all this experience level?
Well, I think that's the other thing. I tried. I tried to kind of address all these issues at first with 4 books. One about drum set, one about hand percussion and technique and auxiliary percussion technique, and a snare drum book and a music theory book. I thought I could tie that in, really quickly. Just, here's the 4 topics. But then it turned out, as I was teaching a lot of drum set students, whether they were young or old, everybody, I think music doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, with race or gender or religion or age. I think music is just, time is time. And you have, a whole note is a whole note to everybody, that can hear it. So I just kind of focused more on addressing the topics. I think 9 times out of 10, the fundamentals in music are so important. You have to be able to subdivide really well. You have to have a good sense of counting and patience and things like that. So I try to just relate all of that into the material. And I think it's really important to learn how to break something down to its fundamental, like just pure basis.
Yeah.
Like for example, with subdividing, there's a method that I learned in college of how to subdivide. Basically, if you have a rhythm, you just in a measure, you write down every single subdivision that's in the measure, and then there's a series of exercises that teach you to put the notes that you don't play inside of parentheses, right? And the notes you do play are outside of it. And I kind of do that from very simple, basic rhythms to very, very complex rhythms. And it's all a sense of developing that and having that patience where you can just do it from a very simple way and figure out how to do it in a very complex way. And it's so, that the book I mentioned earlier, The Science of Time and Rhythm, is very much about, just starting at one point, and if you have an issue, refer back to it. It's not something that's supposed to be mastered in a day. It takes years and years and years of understanding how subdividing works. Really. So
So where is, well, actually, before we get to where people could find the book, hand percussion, and I know you have experience in world music and music from different parts of the world. Has that been addressed in the books, or is that all part of kind of the hand percussion, or?
It does. And it's very unique to, in a lot of ways, it's very relatable to everybody, and it's also very unique to my experience as a percussionist and a drum set player, and applying, your feet to your hands. I think when I first got into college, I came in as a drum set player, and then I was very humbled really quickly at, well, you got to play marimba, you got to play vibes, and I was like, okay. So I, went in with a very open mind, worked really hard, and it was very rewarding, and I learned so much. And then going out into the real, and I also learned hand percussion technique, which I'd never really, I just, the people around me were so inspirational. I had to learn all this amazing stuff. And so I found ways of like from watching teachers and things like that, of how to be creative and apply your feet to your hand percussion technique. Because it calls, a lot of the work that's out there calls for that. A lot of bands say, well, we don't really want like a full drum kit. We want something kind of in between. You watch these people with coffee shop groups, and they have to, as percussionists, they go straight to the cajon, or, but I think, it's good to just kind of be very creative and just listen, use your ear, don't just like stick to something because you've seen someone else do it. It's, every situation is unique. You have to use your ear. You have to balance, and you have to think, and you have to be respectful of what, the other people that you're playing with, whether they're your boss or your friend, or so I think it's very important. So with these books, I kind of just took the experience of being a drum set player and a hand percussionist, and that's kind of how I and all these different styles too, that I think are very important, and just kind of just wrote them the way that was unique to my experience. But I also did have, it's not like I just took something that was totally new. I mean, a lot of these influences come from years and years and generations of so many drummers before me that, I wanted to pay respect to as well. So,
where can people get the book? And actually, one more question. Your students are using your methods already, but is there kind of a plan or a goal, or maybe a hope that someday the book will be used in certain schools or certain places? Are you working on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm developing a website, and that's just kind of on top of converting the books into audio files. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal is to move forward. Absolutely. Right now, it's been a lot of there's been a lot of work in front of me that I've been tackling. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And where can people get the book now?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
And there's, if you click on the books, they let you look in certain parts of the books too.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And don't forget that audio files will be available soon. They're done. I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward with that. I went on a couple websites, and it's a little tricky because there's so much material. So like the certain CD companies, they just want a little less material than that. So I'm trying to figure out the right way to make it happen so that students can listen to it and play along to it as long as the teacher is working with them. So
well, it's really crazy. You're talking about all of these things, and I've talked about this with every person that's been on this podcast. Is as a musician nowadays in the 21st century, it's like you're teaching, you're playing with all these groups, you're working on projects, you're making your website, you're doing all these different things. It's so crazy to live in a world where we have to do all these different things. It seems like maybe 100 years ago or so, it was maybe a little bit less of work, or maybe we just don't know what was happening back then. Maybe it was equal but just different.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the only way to move forward with that is be respectful of the past and have an open mind and listen and work hard. I mean, I think people, I don't know how much technology, is really going to change, the amount of work that people do. Everyone's just going to have to work hard all the time. And so with that being said, technology is amazing. Yeah, we're able to accomplish things that we weren't able to, 10 years ago or obviously before then. But so, I mean, I think that's another thing that I learned, too, is how important the technology is to being a working musician, too, especially these days. You have to practice hard, but then you have to figure out ways to incorporate the technology into your practice. You see what people are doing and pushing the limits of musicianship, and it's pretty amazing, and it's very exciting. So,
So we talked about the book, primarily the books, but what do you do outside of working on the book and teaching? Any musical activities?
Yeah, I'm playing as much as I can right now. I play at Disneyland California Adventure on Mondays and Tuesdays with a contract group called Sligo-Rags. They're a really great progressive Celtic group, and I've been working for them in Disney ever since I graduated college, and it's been really good. I'm playing drums and percussion and singing background vocals. I've been playing a lot of steel pan lately, and putting together a group with that, and also I've been DJing a little bit too.
Wow.
So, it's very interesting. I never thought I would get into, but that's a fun thing too. I'm just playing with different musicians around. Right now I'm based in South Orange County, and teaching and playing, and it's writing, and I mean it's really exciting. Things are really good. So
when I was reading about you, I also kind of read something, and I don't know if you could share much about this, but the Palm Springs musical. What's this about?
That's right. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So I'm working on writing a musical at the same time. I totally forgot about that after everything we were talking about. That's very interesting. One of my mentors when I was in college, Brad Dukes, I picked him up from the airport one time, and he's just got the most amazing career, and he's played with everybody, from Madonna to Frank Sinatra, And I asked him, I said, so after this, you're still working and things like that, but you have this whole career behind you. If you could do anything different, what would you do? And he said, that's a really good question. I was like, okay, so what would you do? And he goes, I honestly would have started writing a lot sooner.
Wow.
As a performer, I think, I can't speak for all performers, but for myself, I've always been afraid in a sense. I mean, just kind of shied away from it. and it's always been hard for me to get myself to write something, you know. And I know that sounds weird. So I've written 8 books, and I'm, working on a musical right now. But it's been very interesting to kind of just think about what he said and just apply that to my life. And it's kind of how I got into this can of worms. My mom, she's a theater arts major, and she wrote this musical after she retired. So now that she's retired, she and her best friend wrote this musical, and the script is really great. My mom's she's a singer and a lyricist, and so she kind of put this together. She's like, I think it'd be really fun if we worked on this together, and so we're just working really hard on that and collaborating, and that's been a very rewarding process. So I'm excited to see that come into fruition as well.
So a couple more questions.
Sure.
What do you do outside of music? Any hobbies? Any pastime activities?
No. It sounds very unhealthy, but I spend time with my wife, and we have fun, and we hang out with friends. But it's kind of I'm immersed for sure, and I think it's just because I'm very excited about how everything's going. My wife and I we started to play tennis. That's a good pastime. I like that one. But that's pretty much it.
How about a memorable performance of the past? Maybe one of your students had a memorable performance. Whatever you want to share. Any memorable ones?
Man, there's so many. I can't think of. I think after doing a lot of different gigs and stressful gigs and not so stressful not so stressful gigs, maybe boring gigs, various types of I can't even think of all of them. But I think the most rewarding one for sure were my junior and my senior recital. Those were definitely the most poignant ones for me, because it kind of proved to me that I could do something, right? And then I kind of just figured, all right, well, now I'm just going to keep doing it. And I think that was the biggest one. Those were the 2 biggest ones for me, Every one since then has been, I think a direct result of, of those 2 performances. I mean, I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't because of, what I went through in Cal State Long Beach's percussion career and program. So those were the 2 most, definitely the most exciting and rewarding experiences, because I'm just this young college kid, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually playing music and I'm doing all this great stuff, and so I've always just been moving forward since then, and I'm still trying to this day.
You teach. I think youth are very important. I work with 2 youth orchestras here in Washington State, and I find that it's very important to educate the future generations and inspire them. What advice do you have to young musicians if they were to listen to this by chance? What would you give them? What would you say to them?
It's interesting. We always have like a superhero complex for all of the musicians that we look up to. And it's interesting when a lot of them you meet, and they're typically just like nervous people that don't have it together, or sometimes they're maybe doing drugs, or maybe, so you just never know what's going on with people. And so don't ever let, your perception of somebody else get in the way of you working hard on something and doing something great with your life, whether that be music, whether that be whatever, so, just have a good attitude, be positive, because that will reflect on others. And, and don't, if anytime you get discouraged, just, don't dwell on it, learn from your mistakes. The best musicians in the world make mistakes every time they play. They're so good, you can't tell. They're so good at recovering from it. And yeah, just don't compete with other people, you know, because I mean, there's so many things, you know, as you know, you see like, you know, amazing virtuosic people, and then they quit by the time they get to, you know, 18 years old, you know. So yeah, don't ever let anybody, your perception of somebody else, hinder what you can accomplish. So, and always keep moving forward and work hard and have patience.
Yeah.
And put a smile on your face.
I don't know if this quote is, if Bartok, Bela Bartok, the composer, actually said this, but he said something like competitions are for horses, not humans.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
that's right. I mean, it's weird, man. I mean, it's just, there's so much that has to be done. You know, just focus on the good stuff. You know.
Or maybe he said artists. I don't remember, but something of that sort. But anyways. It's great to see that you have this perspective on it, because I was talking about this with the previous person on the podcast, and it's crazy how we're so competitive, especially in the music world. And I'm talking to the younger generations of musicians, you and I was talking to Matt Waters, a trombonist from LA, and he was saying that, you know, it should be more healthy. It shouldn't be about always competing, and he was saying very similar things to what you're saying. So it's nice to see that the new generation of musicians has a different perspective on things. So it's I think it's going to be a much healthier world, you know, maybe 20 years down the road.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, that's the goal.
Well, you have anything to say? Anything else that we missed, maybe?
No, man. I mean, I think we covered a lot of it. Thank you so much, man. It's great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you, and as I said before it started, I've done 25 or 26 of these, and you're probably only the third person that I've actually met in person. So, so hopefully I'll see you soon, and not, you know, 7 or 8 years from now.
It's good that we get to catch up on positive, you know, circumstances. Yeah. So.
Well, good luck with everything. I'll post this up at some point in the next couple of days and share it with everyone, and hopefully people will learn from this and get your book and learn from that as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks, T. Have a good one, man. Good to see you.
Thank you.